We did it, everybody. I woke up this morning, opened up my phone, and surprise, surprise, there I saw 1,000 subscribers. So I'd like to start this video by giving thanks to all of those people, those 1,000 people, who have made that possible. And what is the first video I'll be making in celebration of those 1,000 subscribers? Well, I put a poll up a couple days ago, asking people what my next Tekken video should be. And on that poll were two brand new, unique video ideas that I've never done before, that I was sure my audience would be excited for. Oh, and there was also a remake of a video I've already done, and they picked the remake. Guys, you think the reason why we're getting all these rehashes, remakes, remasters, and reboots might be because us as a customer base aren't willing to step outside of our comfort zone and purchase something that's truly outside of the box? Look, all I'm saying is that when Last of Us Part 2 Ultimate Edition 4K The Rise of Ellie V3 comes out, don't come fucking crying at me about it. Having said that, don't let anyone say that I don't give my audience what they want. So here I am giving you the sweet, sweet remake that you desire. So all the rules for the list and everything else is going to be the exact same as before, still doing 13 instead of 10. Because you know it wouldn't be a soulless rehash if we used any creativity whatsoever. I wonder if I should be recasted with a black lesbian. Also, don't be surprised if some of these points sound exactly the same as they did in the last video, because they are. You're not getting a case of deja vu. While a lot of characters on this list will be different and there is going to be some movement, people going up and down, some of them I just straight up don't feel any different about than I did before. Some arguments for them could seem like I just directly copied and pasted them. Anyway, let's get started. So number 13 is Victor Chevalier. Chevalier. Whatever, I'm not good with names. I think in reality that Victor should actually be higher on this list, but I'm not going to do it until he does more things. Right now, we just haven't seen enough from him to put him higher. But what we do know is that he trained all the Ravens, and he's quite a bit stronger than they are. I don't know how much more skilled you have to be than someone to tattoo them mid-fight without them realizing it, but I imagine it's considerable. Like, how the fuck does that even happen? On top of that, he beat Dragunov in a fight, and I actually hold Dragunov pretty high up in terms of power in the Tekken universe. Prior to Tekken 8, Dragunov has never been defeated in combat canonically. And I'm pretty sure his fight with Master Raven in Tekken 7 is canon. There are two possible endings to Dragunov's story in Tekken 7. One of them is that he gets arrested by the UN, and the other one is that he kills Master Raven. And seeing as he's not in jail at the beginning of Tekken 8, it can be assumed that his other ending is canon, where he murders Master Raven. Master Raven is superior to Raven. So Victor being superior to this guy, as well as being massively superior to all of the Ravens, to me, puts him on this list. Honestly, if this list went up to 15, Dragunov would probably be on it too. I'd probably have him at 15. Who knows? Maybe in Tekken 9 he'll make it. Number 12, Paul Phoenix. My opinions have not changed at all when it comes to Paul. In my mind, comparatively to the other characters, he's the same strength as he's been in the last couple of games. He always does well in the tournament. He always gets towards the end. He's always relatively high in power when it comes to the human characters, but I can't put him over any of the massively superhuman characters because he just hasn't shown the feats to do so. The only thing real about Paul's power level that's finally been confirmed in Tekken 8 is that he is considerably stronger than Law. I've been saying this for a really long time and people don't believe me. In the last Top Fighter video that I made, there was a couple of arguments that were saying that Law and Steve should be comparable to Paul because they fight each other and they're sparring partners, and I disagreed with this, and I still disagree with this. In this game, it is shown that Paul is considerably stronger than Law. They get into two fights and Paul beats him in both of them. And I don't think that there's anywhere near enough evidence to say that Steve is either. And I know that people think Paul's so powerful because he fought Kazuya in Tekken 2. And as I've said to those people before, Kazuya was considerably weaker in Tekken 2. The entire verse was considerably weaker in Tekken 2 than it is now. Paul was a top tier when there were only like 15 characters and 95% of them were human. But now in Tekken we got planet destroyers and demons and aliens and angels and all kinds of crazy shit, and Paul just doesn't compete. Just like everybody else, I want Harada to use Paul more efficiently in the story so that he can go up higher on this list. But until that happens, he's staying put. Number 11, Feng Wei. Pretty much everything I say with Paul can apply to Feng Wei. While I believe he got a strength increase because Leroy just straight up says he has a strength increase in this game, I think pretty much every character got a strength increase, and his doesn't seem significant enough for me to put him anywhere higher on the list. He's got really impressive feats like punching a giant lava boulder into smithereens, breaking apart a mountain, and whatever the hell this thing is. But he was beaten by Leroy Smith in Tekken 7, which automatically puts Leroy above him, but in this game, despite him trying to take out Leroy, we never see that actually happen. So he hasn't done what he wanted to do and prove himself over Leroy. So just like Paul, Feng Wei basically ain't moving. Number 10, Hwoarang. So Hwoarang did move. Before I put him below Feng Wei, now I'm putting him above. And boy oh boy are people gonna be pissed because they want him way higher than this. But there's basically one reason why I can't do that. For the third time in a row, Tekken has had Hwoarang fight against Jin where he has the very clear advantage. I've talked to a couple of people in the comments who believe that Jin's depowered state that he's in Tekken 8 is solely due to him losing the Devil Gene, but I feel like those people weren't 100% paying attention to the story. That's not at all what happened. Lee and Lars both say that Jin is essentially a completely different fighter, and his overall combat aptitude is nothing like it was before. This is before any of them realize that Jin is incapable of using his Devil Gene. The game makes it very clear they're not talking about the Devil Gene here. They're talking about Jin as a fighter on his own. They specifically state that everything from his strength to his reaction time to his speed to his techniques have all taken a hit after his loss against Kazuya. This has nothing to do with the Devil Gene. So while it's cool that Jin had to use the Devil Gene in order to overcome Hwoarang, Hwoarang was fighting a weaker version of Jin. And it's not like Hwoarang was completely dominating Jin in this fight. It was pretty damn even. There was a lot of back and forth happening here. And if anything, all this fight does to me is confirm that if Jin was at full power, even without his Devil Gene, he would absolutely wipe the floor with Hwoarang. I hope that in Tekken 9, Harada finally allows Hwoarang and Jin to just go at it without any disadvantages on either side so we can finally see who would really win. But their fight in 8 absolutely does not prove that Hwoarang is better. Number 9, Leroy Smith. I can already see the arguments that are going to come in. Jin had to use the Devil Gene against Hwoarang but didn't have to use it against Leroy. Therefore, Hwoarang is stronger than Leroy. No. Again, Hwoarang was fighting a weaker version of Jin, as was Leroy. However, throughout the fight with Jin, Leroy was teaching him how to get his skills back to fighting shape. And at the start of their fight, not only could Jin not beat Leroy, he couldn't even really hurt him. Leroy was absolutely wiping the floor with Jin in a way that Hwoarang was not. Leroy specifically took the time out of this fight to teach Jin how to get back to the way he was. And throughout this fight, he gets better and better until he gets his combat aptitude back up to what it was before. So basically the way I see it is this. At the beginning of the game, Jin had two deficiencies. He wasn't able to use the Devil Gene, and he had a serious mental block that made it so that he couldn't fight at 100%. During his fight with Hwoarang, he learned how to use the Devil Gene again. During his fight with Leroy, he got over his mental block, or at least one of them. The whole belief in yourself and fighting with heart and all that stuff that Leroy was trying to teach him. This allowed him to fight with his full skill, and is what gave him the ability to overcome Leroy. And this is the reason why Leroy is above Hwoarang. They both fought against a weaker version of Jin, but Leroy did significantly better against him, even though he was holding back and trying to teach him how to fight better. Number 8, Brian Fury. All my arguments for Brian Fury are the exact same as they were before. In fact, in this game, he clearly has more control over the engine inside his body, which gives him a massive power boost. He is very clearly stronger now than he was in Tekken 7. But I can't put him any higher because he doesn't really have any feats in this game. All the feats that he has, I have to pull from past games, so his movement on this list can't really change. He's another character like Paul that I think need to be used more often against higher level characters. Number 7, Jinpachi Mishima. There's nothing new to say about Jinpachi. He's the exact same as he was before. He's dead. I just don't think that any character below him has shown that they're powerful enough to pass him up. Jinpachi Mishima is the first character to ever be told that he can destroy the world, and he keeps the spot because of that. I seriously doubt that Brian Fury is capable of destroying the world. Number 6, Azazel. So Azazel actually got moved down on the list. Not because I think he's weaker than he was before, but he has clearly been surpassed by the top tiers of this franchise. His introduction in 6 was a massive shakeup to the entire world. The whole game was devoted to taking this dude down because he was capable of destroying literally everything that everyone knew. In Tekken 8, he shows up for one level, gets his ass beat immediately, and then gets absorbed by Kazuya. Like, he's not even really a threat anymore. I think it's pretty clear there are quite a few characters that would have been able to take him out. And this is kind of the point that I've been making in this video and the previous video. All of the characters from the start of Tekken 1 have all increased in power dramatically. In every single game, the power creep has been real. This is the reason why characters like Paul can't go up higher on the list. Because while he has had power creep just like every other character, it hasn't been as significant as other characters. And Azazel's the same thing. I honestly believe that Azazel probably came back stronger now than he was in Tekken 6. Because in Tekken 6, they specifically said that he wasn't at full power, that he was still charging his power up. Pretty sure he's at full power here in 8. It just doesn't matter. I imagine as the franchise continues and Tekken 10 and 11 and 12 come out, that Azazel will continuously drop on this list until he's just not here anymore. 5, Lars Alexanderson. He defeated Azazel before, and I think he's gotten powerful enough that he can defeat Azazel now. While not being capable of defeating True Devil Kazuya, he does stand against him longer than pretty much any other character in the series. And it seems by the way he fights, they've really leaned into his whole Mishima bloodline power-up. So just in case you're not aware, all Mishimas have lightning powers. They're born with it. It's just a part of the Mishima bloodline. While characters like Heihachi, Kazuya, and Jin are all shown to have it, Lars has gotten way better at it than any of them. At times, it almost looks like he turns into lightning itself. The way he dashes around and moves during combat just seems far superior to any other Mishima. And honestly, the only thing that's holding Lars back from being in that top 3 is the fact that he does not have a Devil Gene. Number 4, Reina Mishima. So for 99% of this game, I would put Lars ahead of Reina. They both do the exact same thing, which is be the only ones to fight True Devil Kazuya one-on-one as a human being. Although I think you can argue that Lars fought him when he was a little more powerful than when Reina fought him. However, the thing that puts Reina above Lars is the fact that at the end of the game, she gets a Devil Gene. That pretty much instantly multiplies her power by like 100. So even if she was close to Lars at first, she's not anymore. She's passed him up. Having the Devil Gene in the Tekken series pretty much automatically puts you over every single character in the series that doesn't have a Devil Gene, with the exception of one character. And that character would be number 3, Heihachi Mishima. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Heihachi. He's just ridiculously powerful for no reason. I truly don't get it. While I stand by my statement that Lars has mastered the Mishima bloodline powers more than any other Mishima, for whatever reason, Heihachi is just clearly more powerful. He's more powerful than 99% of the franchise. He is the absolute strongest, most skilled fighter ever. At the end of Tekken 7, he fights against True Devil Kazuya and damn near beats him. Now, I don't know if Kazuya at the beginning of Tekken 8 is the same power as Kazuya at the end of Tekken 7. There's a 6-month gap there, so he's probably a little bit stronger. But either way, I don't really think it matters. I don't think Jin at the beginning of Tekken 8 would have stood a chance against Kazuya at the end of Tekken 7. But Heihachi could. Number 2, Kazuya Mishima. I actually think there's a chance that Kazuya's potential is number 1, and he just never quite reaches it. There's a scene in the game where Kazuya talks about Azazel fighting back within Kazuya's body, trying to regain control of his power. And Kazuya says that that fighting is pointless, that eventually his soul will overtake Azazel's and the power will be his to control solely. And this might be a failure of the writing, but I'm just going to assume that this was planned. They never have a scene where he confirms that he has fully absorbed Azazel and that their soul has become one. So the only thing that I can assume is that Azazel is still fighting back against Kazuya, trying to retake control. This means that throughout the game and in the final battle with Jin, Kazuya does not have full control of Azazel's power and is fighting in a weakened state. Despite this, he's still the second strongest character in the entire franchise, to such an extent that he can essentially solo the entire roster at the same time. There is only one character whose power is comparable to him, even slightly. And before I reveal this mystery character of whom no one could possibly guess who it is, I got a bit of a reveal to make. Believe it or not, I lied. I pulled the rug out from underneath your feet and you didn't even notice. Because this video is not just a remake slash rehash slash reboot slash whatever the fuck you want to call it. Instead, it's sort of a response video to the last top 13 list I made. And within the comments of that video, there were a lot of people asking why certain characters weren't on the list. Some of that asking was nice and some of it not so nice. But I figured in this video I would take the time to explain exactly why some of those characters who were brought up are not on this list. You can call it honorable mentions, you can call it whatever you want. But this is going to be the part of the video where I talk about those characters in question. So in no particular order, let's get started. Kuma. So he's actually not here because people thought he should be here, but more so because he was here and now he's not. In my last list I had him over Paul because he had one more victory over Paul than Paul had over him, since it's very heavily implied that they fought each other in Tekken 6. But the reason why he was removed from the list is because his showings here in Tekken 8 are absolutely atrocious. Not only does he have no fights whatsoever, but he tries to sneak attack Paul in order to defeat him, which automatically kind of makes me think that he's probably not strong enough to beat Paul fairly. But he also gets knocked out by a random stray rocket, which is crazy to me. Considering that Paul has been able to fight against Brian, although not beat him, like I don't think that Paul is anywhere near the power of Brian. Just the fact that he's been able to fight against him and Brian has been able to take like whole helicopters crashing into him and being perfectly fine. Not being able to take a basic rocket to the face by comparison is just kind of pathetic. You can argue that this was done for humor and not an accurate representation of Kuma's strength, but when it's literally the only showing we have from Kuma in this whole game, it's all I could pull from. Ogre. I kind of said in the last list that I didn't really think he belonged there, and I stand by that now. I really only put him there because it would have felt weird if he wasn't. But the truth is that the entire roster is getting so much more powerful since Tekken 3 that him being one of the strongest in that game does not mean that he's even in the bottom 10 of this game. And I know about Monstrous Ogre that appeared in, what, Tekken 5, I think, where he was like a more powerful version of True Ogre, but that version of Ogre has absolutely no feats. He shows up, gets beaten by Jin, and that's it. Ogre's best showing in the entire franchise is when he takes down a helicopter in a non-canon ending. Even if he did arrive at this level of power in the game, which he never does, canonically, taking down a helicopter is child's play for pretty much everyone on the roster. You have characters who are destroying planets and sinking continents at this point. Ogre doesn't belong here. Claudio. So I'll admit not a lot of people were defending Claudio, but there were one or two who were saying that because Claudio was literally Kazuya's kryptonite that he should be on the list, and I disagree. Just because he uses some kind of holy power that is a weakness of the devil gene doesn't make him any stronger. Claudio still isn't beating even the lowest tier people on this list, and as we've seen in Tekken 8, all of that holy power that he has wasn't even that effective on Kazuya. Yoshimitsu. Okay, this is probably the character that had the most support in the comment section. Everybody was saying the same thing. He defeated Bryan. He beat Bryan. He's Bryan's rival. Why is he not up there with Bryan? Or above Bryan? Because he's never once defeated Bryan. I'm not sure if people are just taking the non-canon endings and seeing them as canon, but to this day, Yoshimitsu is trying to get revenge on Bryan and has failed to do so. They have fought several times, and he loses every single time they fight. The only description that we have that even shows that Yoshimitsu stands a chance against Bryan is one where it says that Yoshimitsu kept getting in the way of Bryan's goals. Not only is that vague as hell, but also that does not require him to beat Bryan in a fight. Remember, Yoshimitsu wants to kill Bryan. He doesn't want to just get in the way of his goals, and he's not powerful enough to do it. In fact, in Tekken 8 and the non-canon character story, Yoshimitsu's ending shows him getting his ass beat by Bryan until he uses the power of Azazel to overcome him. Meaning that even in Yoshimitsu's non-canon character story, he is not capable of defeating Bryan in a one-on-one fight without the enhancements of Azazel. I mean, hell, in the story of Tekken 8, right before Yoshimitsu and Bryan's fight, Yoshimitsu says that he's going to finally avenge the Manji clan by defeating Bryan. Obviously, this means he hasn't done it yet, so I don't know why people keep arguing that he's beaten him. He hasn't. There seems to be this idea among the Tekken fandom that just because two characters are set up as rivals or enemies that they must be similar in strength, but the actual story of Tekken constantly contradicts this, right? Paul and Law are both friends and rivals. Paul is significantly stronger than Law. Hwoarang and Jin are rivals. Jin is significantly stronger than Hwoarang. Yoshimitsu and Bryan are enemies and rivals. Yoshimitsu is nowhere near the strength of Bryan. Two characters that are enemies or rivals do not have to be similar in strength. They never have before throughout the whole series, so I have no idea why people seem to think that this is the case. King. This character probably got the second most support, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's just because he's a fan favorite. At least Yoshimitsu has fought people who are on the list. King hasn't. King's only fights in the entire series are against Armor King, Steve, and Marduk. None of those characters are on this list or deserve to be on this list, so why would King? He hasn't fought a Mishima, he hasn't fought Bryan, he hasn't fought Lars or Jinpachi or Hwoarang or any of these characters who everyone considers to be top tier, so why would King be top tier? If I made a top 10 list on the best Tekken characters, not combat-wise, but just all-around best characters, then King would absolutely be here. But that's not what this list is. So the King fanboys have to wait patiently and see if King eventually does do something that makes him deserve to be here. Zafina. She was also a character that was on the list before that's been removed. The reason why that is because Zafina had the power of Azazel in her arm, which I believed automatically made her more powerful than a lot of the characters here, and I still believe that to be true to an extent. The problem is that in Tekken 8, she doesn't fight anybody. The only person she fights is Kazuya, and of course Kazuya is going to completely destroy her. It's not even going to be close. She never has a chance to actually show that power against anybody. So it's basically wasted that she even has it. To me, it's sort of similar like Avengers Infinity War, where Vision gets taken out at the very beginning of the movie. Like, we all know Vision is one of the most powerful Avengers, but he never really has a chance to do anything against anyone, and that's kind of the way I feel about Zafina. She was potentially one of the most powerful characters, but was just brutally misused. Kazumi, same exact argument as Ogre. Yes, she has a devil gene. Yes, she's a skilled fighter and all of that stuff. She was beaten by Heihachi prior to Tekken 1. Characters were not that strong back then. Kazumi is hands down the weakest user of the devil gene, and this is kind of one reason why I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that the Mishima bloodline is actually more valuable than the devil gene. Characters like Reina, Heihachi, Kazuya, and Jin are all some of the most powerful characters in the series, but the thing they all have in common isn't the devil gene, it's the Mishima bloodline. I think the reason why Kazuya and Jin are so goddamn powerful is because they have a combination of the Mishima bloodline as well as the devil gene. Kazumi, even with the devil gene, was not able to put up really even close to a fight against Heihachi. I mean, don't get me wrong, he struggles a little bit, but he still kills her with one hand. Honestly, it seems like Heihachi had a harder time fighting against someone like Nina than Kazumi. Speaking of which, Nina. Okay, so remember when I said that Dragunov would be number 15 if I went up to 15? I think Nina would probably be number 14. I do respect Nina's skill, and I understand that pretty much every character in the series respects her strength. Kazuya, Heihachi, and Reina have all mentioned how impressed they are with her strength. Having said that, Nina doesn't have a whole lot of victories under her belt. She has virtually none. Pretty much all of Nina's fights either end in a loss or get interrupted in some way. She wins against Anna, her fight against Steve gets interrupted, she loses against Heihachi, she loses against Kazuya. She loses against Reina. Like, again, it is impressive that she fights against a lot of the top tiers, but she never beats any of them. In order for her to make it on this list, she would actually have to beat somebody on this list, but she hasn't actually done that. Even somebody like Paul or Feng Wei or Leroy Smith, just somebody. Bloody Nancy. I saw like 3 or 4 times that Bloody Nancy should be on here. I don't know why. Bloody Nancy is a giant robot that fights against Lars and Alyssa in Tekken 6, and while it's impressive that she causes problems for them, Raven ends up coming in and defeating it for them, allowing them to escape. As we've established, Raven's not really that powerful. It has been stated that Master Raven, Victor, and Dragunov are all stronger than Raven, so I just don't understand why Bloody Nancy would be here when she was beaten by someone who's so low on the list. I mean, maybe he might be in the top 20 or 25, but he's sure as shit not in the top 13. And that's it. I'm probably missing some. I think some people jokingly said, why isn't Mojiko on here? Mokuji, whatever the tree's name is. If I forgot some, what else is new? I forget everything. So let's continue on to number 1, Jin Kazuma. I know, crazy. Who would have thought? But yes, Jin is the absolute strongest of the entire franchise. Look, the truth is that Kazi and Jin were the strongest long before Tekken 8. But not only does Tekken 8 completely solidify this, it sort of goes way farther with it. No one stood a chance against Jin when he was in his devil form before, but Angel Jin is so far beyond Devil Jin that it's really kind of ridiculous. I mean, honestly, True Devil Kazi and Angel Jin are basically Dragon Ball Z characters in this Tekken franchise. The only real thing I can say here is that it could be argued that True Devil Kazi and Angel Jin are equal in power due to the fact that they both kind of destroy each other by the end of the game. Really, the only reason why Jin is here is because he happened to knock out Kazuya before Kazuya can knock him out. But to be honest with you, if they fought again, I wouldn't be surprised if Kazuya knocked out Jin. I think they're probably equal at this point, to be honest, but a win's a win, so Jin gets it. Now, I still think it's possible that True Devil Kazuya is more powerful than Angel Jin at his full potential, since it was directly stated that Kazuya could not control the power of Azazel. But, you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda, doesn't really matter. Jin's combination of the Mishima bloodline, the Devil Gene, and the Cosmo Purification powers just make him ridiculously overpowered in this game. The only real question left with by the end of this game is, now that Jin and Kazuya have both lost their Devil Gene, are they still at this point of power? Probably not, but I don't really think I can answer that question. Like, if Azazel came back right now that Jin and Kazuya don't have the Devil Gene, would Kazuya still be able to defeat Azazel despite not having that Devil Gene? You could probably argue no, but until we get a legitimate answer, I'm not going to just throw out random assumptions. As of right now, this is the order as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to be all from me. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, click that little bell icon. Y'all be safe out there, you hear?